We are live. Hey, with the dog days of fantasy baseball upon us, are you a buyer or a seller in your fantasy baseball leagues? That and our regular who's hot, who's not, who's on the waiver wire that should be on your roster, and who's on your roster that should be on the waiver wire. There's a lot of those. You are looking live in our
Nice, Brent,
split
nice
studios.
Brent Musburger work. I had that one in my head earlier.
Thank you. This is Fantasy Baseball Now. Episode 2 is upon us as we've joined up with the Ball9.com podcast network. In addition to what I already mentioned, be sure to catch our closing 5 segment at the end of the show. Michael will be taking the honors. And on that note, by way of introduction, with a combined 70 years of fantasy baseball experience, I am Sean Pugsley Martin. This is Mike Nelson, here to talk some fantasy baseball or Major League Baseball with a fantasy baseball spin. Feel free to offer comments during the show. We'll be happy to address them as we roll along tonight. You can follow us on Twitter, taking the podcast weekly. By Apple. Mike, how's you can send a message over to the Philly bullpen and tell them to thank you for the meltdown today. It cost me a much needed win from Aaron Nola, so I'm a little
they got some problems for sure. I mean, it's going to be an interesting 6 days, all the way around. It's going to be a really interesting 6 days. It feels like almost all the contenders are in need of bullpen help, almost all of them.
Yep.
And all the teams that are selling, including one that we'll talk about at the very end of my 5 hot takes, which has me pissed off, will have pitching available to subsidize these bullpens. But hey, look at we're in the home stretch from an MLB standpoint. We're in the home stretch from a fantasy standpoint, whether it's roto or whether it's head to head. So now's the time, right? Now's the time. It's put up or shut up time all the way around. And some teams were still trying in both in Major League Baseball and in fantasy, we're still trying to figure out what the hell they are, which is crazy in July, but that's where we are.
That is where we are. And before we get to the are you a buyer or seller, I do think, especially since this is a live broadcast, our first, Garrett Cole just gave up another home run.
I know he did. I know he did. I was really paying attention to that game, but then I was enlightened by the fact that the Red Sox players were so thrilled with the 3-year contract extension for Alex Cora that they gave up a pick 6, a 73-yard punt return, and a 1-yard touchdown run with a mixed extra point today to the lowly Rockies. And the best pitcher that they used today was Dom Smith, who threw a clean 1 inning. Another embarrassment to the game of baseball. But yeah, nice work out of that group of ragtag sad sacks from Boston. Another group of pretenders.
We call that deflecting, by the way.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Deflecting. Anywho,
hey, look, we're 21 and we're 10 and about to be 10 and 22 in the last 32.
It's pretty good.
And still lead the majors in runs and still only a couple games out of first place and still firmly entrenched in the wild card. And with Brian Cashman's track record, he'll make a gigantic move like James MacArthur from the Royals.
Sure.
For, somebody that we never heard of that goes to Kansas City and leads them to the playoffs while MacArthur gets battered around Yankee Stadium because we got history on our side.
Because why not? All right, look, it's July 24th.
Well,
this is the time of year I always would take stock of my team at the All-Star break, say, where am I? Am I a buyer or a seller? Can I make a run here? Or you got to start to reload. And look, people, our league's been around since 1990. If you're not in a keeper dynasty league, get in one because it makes fantasy baseball a 12-month-a-year gig, and it's awesome. And especially one that you can move around draft picks because if for the dregs of the league, a few of you are watching, Steve. It's true. You can start to reload, right? So you always ask yourself, what's my ceiling, right? What's the best I can do? And is it attainable? And for our league this year, Boogers baseball has a 30-point lead right now over the rest of us, and I'm in a mix. You're still in it with
Yeah.
5 or 6 guys that can make a run for second place. We have the survivor pool, which I mentioned last week. So second place, and especially if you go in that survivor pool.
We didn't get results on that, by the way, this week.
What's that?
I
No, we
see
didn't do
result-
one off the 3-day week.
Oh, good. We'll talk about that
Yeah.
later too.
Yep.
That
So
abomination.
yeah. So yeah, that keeps it in play for us. So again, if you're not in a dynasty league, get in one because it makes it awesome. When do you start to think about you're gonna buy, you're gonna sell, you're gonna
The way
reload?
I've drafted the last 5 years, about 20 minutes after the draft, I've had to make a decision about whether I'm going to buy or sell. It's right now. It's right now. And as you said, in our Roto league, it's a very odd time because there are 6 teams, maybe 7 teams that are within 3 or 4 points of each other, and it changes every single day. So, like, to make a run, it kind of mirrors MLB. Like, Boogers is running away with it. It's going to be nearly impossible to catch him. But like in that league, it's right. I mean, you got to make a move right now because we talked about this a little bit last week. Like you're stockpiling stats, and you
Yes.
can't wait. You can't wait to do that. You've got to do it. But if you're not going to win, how you do that is a little bit different, especially in a dynasty league, is a little bit different than how you would do it if you had a chance to win, right? So if you're playing for first loser status or second place, am I going to trade Paul Skeens for 3 guys and maybe a pick because I have a chance to win it? No, I'm not. If I was 2 points out of first and I needed a Judge like bat and Skeens would get me Judge and I was comfortable like I am in most of the pitching categories, I'd have to think about doing it. And I know it would kill me down the line, but you only get one chance to win. I mean, every year you get a chance to win.
Correct.
And you got to take advantage of it. Head to head, a different thing. I think it's a little late, to be honest with you. Unless the standings are tight enough that you go on a 3 or 4 week run. I mean, we are 2, 4, 6, we're 7 weeks left. And if you're more than 3 games out of a playoff spot with 7 weeks left, you waited too long to make your move.
Yeah.
If you're within a couple games, like you got to go all in. You got to go all in. And it's a different all in, honestly, when you're not saving players because you're worrying about 1 year at a time. And part of that I like. You don't get attached to them. I like the open draft quality anyway, just because it's fun to see where guys go. But like that said, I think head to head, you might have had to have this conversation with yourself in mid-June instead of end of July, or at least at the latest, the beginning of the month. But in Roto, it's all in. And if you're a team at the bottom of the league, now is the time. If you have the assets to help, now's the time to stockpile draft picks if that's allowed in your league, because you can go out and get dynasty players using picks. Because generally, teams that are at the top of the division, depending on how many guys you save, have too many assets to save inside that limitation. So to be able to move them for picks in the offseason also is a strategy. But I don't know. For me, I think Roto, you got to do it now. Like between now, the trade deadline does impact that a little bit, and I think this year more than most, it's really impacted that because there's been feelers put out with guys that are rumored to be to be traded, and there's not a lot of bites on it because you don't know what they're going to be.
He thinks
the CIA is on us.
Yeah, right. Here's the thing we saw in our league this year is Boogers has that 30-point lead we talk about. Our action started in June. draft picks being traded because you had to look at it. You got to look at the standings, and you have to know, is there enough time? And, especially for pitchers that, you got to, if you need pitching points, you got to get the impact. So this league, the massive trading started early because now if you're a seller in our specific league, there's not a lot of buyers. How much am I going to give up to try and get second place and win the survivor pool, for example? Right. Look, my goal is I'm all in because last year I got off to a rough start, had a ton of injuries. I made some trades to sell off, and then I got hot. I ended up making a run to the money and missed. But I enjoyed playing 26 weeks because the 3 years before that were a low point in my 35-year fantasy baseball career. I was rebuilding by mid-June. And that's no fun. I wanted to play a full season. That's what I'm going to be doing this year too.
Well, it's also when it's tight, like it is for us, when it's tight, when there's less teams that are willing to make bold moves because the teams that you're going to make them with are also thinking the same thing.
Yep.
Right. Like I mean, we have made a couple trades, and I've made trade, there's been trading amongst that group of teams, but right now it's everybody's holding their cards pretty close to their vest to see if they can make a run or if they're going to fall off. And you got to be honest with yourself, and that's not always the easiest thing to do.
Yep.
Right. It's not always the easiest thing to do. Like you look at the standings, I'm only 18 runs out of 4 more points, and if I get on, if I go out and if I find a way to get Ellie Dela Cruz, I can make it up. Right. Like it's just that kind of stuff that, like, sometimes you got to be honest with yourself and say, all right, I can't win it. Screw it. Let me help somebody else get the money, even though the money's nice. But at the end of the day, if your name's not going to be on the trophy, nobody remembers where you finished. It doesn't really matter. In fact, sometimes it hurts you worse.
I want the plaque. But also, again, I had 3 years of finishing 11th and 12th, and then I think 11th again. Yeah. I want to play a full season. That's just
it did poke a hole in your proclamation of being the quote unquote greatest owner in the history of fantasy sports, when everybody else is wondering who you're going to blow the first pick on.
Yeah, true. Well, you guys gave me that moniker. I didn't have anything to do with that. Yeah. We sat around one night at the draft and said, I know, let's call Sean the greatest owner in the history of fantasy sports. Yeah, that's exactly how I remember it going. That's how I recall. I was on beer number 25 that night.
Exactly.
And I distinctly remember that conversation.
Yeah. You had that conversation in your head. Your inside voice had that conversation outside of your head with the rest of us. And I remember it being received much differently than you do. I can assure you of that.
And for those joining us, yes, that is one of my boys who's not going to bed, and he thinks I can't see him or hear him crawling on the floor. But that's okay. He's going to be a star once he's ready to go anyway.
Yeah. I can hear him.
Noah, I'm on my show. Let's be quiet, okay? You sit down.
No, if it means anything to you, I could hear you, and you're not even in the same house as me. So you got to work on your clandestine sneak up skills a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not really good.
So how tough is it for you? You sit down. Yeah, you gotta take a long look in the mirror sometimes. Say, you know what? I had a bad draft, injuries, whatever. Picked some bad players, but now it's time where I got to start to worry about next year. It's defeating. But you also got to think about the next year too. And again, if you're going to do that, it's always better to go first and hit that market before it starts.
Yeah, I also think that's the advantage. That's the advantage of keeper/dynasty leagues, is that when you know you're hopelessly mired and having nothing happen, you don't just quit.
Yeah.
Or stop paying attention, or stop logging on, or stop setting
you can't
or stop. And that happens. And that happens. Like, hey, I know I got a bad team. This is pointless. I'm not even going to bother. And it does impact the league. It's a detriment to the league in itself. And you may have already decided you're not coming back. Like, hey, I'm not doing this again. I did it as a favor to somebody. I'm just doing it to fill out a team, and this sucks. So I'm just not going to pay attention anymore. Where even though you might not be playing for this year, you're always playing for next year.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. What now where are you with your team? You still trying? I made a horrific offer to our last place team last night. He almost laughed me out of the building, but
well, because I've had every weird injury that there is this year, including Brian Reynolds' back locking up, getting out of the car today, so he got scratched. Like, what the fuck is up with that? I can't get away. But I've got guys coming back. Royce Lewis is back Friday. Miranda's back Friday. And I need help offensively. So I'm inclined to make a push. But some of the things that I could move might also get traded and not be as valuable in a week as they are today.
Yeah.
Right. Like Devin Williams coming back. He'll probably be back on Monday.
Yep.
And that gives me a closer to move that could help somebody that needs saves, especially if they lose a closer and they become a setup man. But what if the guy that I'm thinking about moving is no longer a closer? Right. So it's a very strange time. And guys that I thought would be good assets to move have all of a sudden decided they don't want to play baseball anymore. So talking about you, Jake Cronenworth, you bag of crap.
I was going to jump on Matt Olson, and they're still my favorite player. He did get a couple hits today. So
he did have a couple hits today, but
please
man,
get going.
Hit one over the fence once.
I can't find equal value when I try and trade him to upgrade. So anyway.
Well, the part of that value, and that's the other problem, right? Is that it's part of that being honest with yourself is that it's very hard to divorce yourself from, I like this guy. He's been on my team for 5 years and he's really carried my team in a lot of ways. Or he's on my favorite team and I want to make sure that I have that player from my favorite team.
Yep.
And I mean, just for context, like this is the guy that traded Judge for Soto in the offseason. And that was a this year and a future move because at 25 years old, I don't care where Soto plays. I mean, I hope he stays with the Yankees, but no matter where he plays, he's going to be productive for another 10 years. And I'm not 100% sure that that's the case for Judge. But Judge has had but if I flip-flop that trade, I would probably comfortably be in second place with Judge instead of fighting to get the second place, even though Soto's been great.
Yeah, Judge has been a monster. Absolute monster. You just need him to get hurt. We need an epic collapse in our league from Boogers Baseball to give us a shot.
It would be an epic collapse.
All right. Hey, let's move on. Let's move on to our stardom and situm. You are more than welcome to lead off again this week.
Yeah, so I sent you this last night. Start Daniel Hudson, sit Evan Phillips, because it appears that Evan Phillips has been supplanted as the closer by Daniel Hudson, and Evan Phillips gets a save last night. Now, this is probably a very short-term piece of advice anyways. I think Hudson's going to get more save opportunities over the next week. He had pitched in back-to-back days. And he is still coming off an injury, a long-time injury from the offseason. The Dodgers will very likely go get a closer and probably somebody that you as an A's fan wish they wouldn't get.
Mm-hmm.
But that rumor is really flying around right now that Mason Miller goes to the Dodgers. That would change everything.
Let me just interject there for a second. I am separation papers have been filed with me in the Athletics. I'm taking this year as a separation year. Next week, I'm going to update. We are down to 5 possible teams for my new favorite team. Should the A's move, I still don't think they're going to.
Can't wait to talk about that.
Yeah. Anyway, go back. Now, I don't think they'll trade Miller, but who knows? They're idiots.
Well, for what they would get from the Dodgers, they'd be kind of stupid not to consider it, right? They're going to get, like always, the Dodgers seem to have more prospects than anybody.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would at this moment in time, I would start Daniel Hudson and I would sit Evan Phillips.
Okay. For me, look, I'm gonna pat myself on the back a little bit. Last week I mentioned Brent Rooker and Lawrence Butler on the Who's Hot and Who to Pick Up. They're ranked 1 and 2 in CBS the last 21 days. That's the greatest owner in the history of fantasy. That's how you earn that nickname. This week, Colt Keith. I am smarter than I look, believe it or not. Second base, Detroit, 22 years old, ranked 9th in CBS overall the last 21 days, hitting 345, 6 homers, 14 RBIs, 16 runs. He's on fire, and he's a young guy, so he's a good one to go get. Now, I got an earful from Boogers. He's getting a lot of playtime tonight, but when you got 107 points, you deserve it.
Yeah.
Apparently, we had 2 of his players on our bad list last week, and he didn't appreciate that, but I'm doing it again because Isaac Paredes hitting a whole whopping 111 in his last 21. I'd park him a little bit and see if he can come out of it before you go put him back in the lineup, because that is just a god-awful number.
Yeah, or wait to see where he's playing August 1st.
Very possible. Doesn't
And
feel like
Boogers, and frankly, if the Boogers' feelings are hurt, I honestly don't give a shit. You've hurt our feelings for the last 15 weeks. Just shut your mouth. Take it. My God.
Yeah.
My God. You're making a mockery of this thing.
He is making a mockery of it. By the way, speaking of hurt feelings, still 5-2 Mets.
Thanks.
In the Bronx.
We don't care.
Go get them and cut them. Who you got?
So I'm going to go get Eugenio Suarez. He got off to an abysmal start. Abysmal. Like, should he retire start? Last 21, 279, 5 homers, 18 RBIs. He appears to be coming back to his old self. So he's never going to hit 300, but he's going to give you 240-ish with power and RBIs. And, not coincidentally, the Diamondbacks are playing better ball, but he is a part of the reason why. And then cut him. I mean, and Suarez is only 38% owned, so he's out there in most leagues. And then Frankie Montas, like, he's still owned on 40% of the teams, and he still started on 20%. Are you freaking kidding me with this idiot? First of all, he sucks. Let's just get to that right now. Let's just he's Carl Pavano 2.0. Since the All-Star break, 1.56 whip, 7.56 ERA. 7.56 ERA. He hasn't gotten out of the 4th inning in any starts. He got battered around again. He just, get him off your team. And I will say, hey, to the folks in Seattle and the Mariners organization, thanks for listening last week, because when I said cut Ty France, I meant from fantasy. I didn't mean from your team.
They took that a little too literally.
Yeah. Like, they could have given him a Kevin Kiermaier experience at least and said, we'll keep you around till somebody claims you. They're like, you know what? No, we don't even care if somebody claims you. You suck, dude. You're done. Thank you. And the coach wants to see you and bring your playbook. Like, get the hell out of here. Wow, crazy. So maybe the Reds will say the same thing with Frankie Montas. Maybe we finally got to the point, after doing this for so much time, that we're getting them right.
Maybe Montas, maybe he can find a home back in the Bronx. Right? Right the wrong. The wrong.
Yeah, he can.
All right.
Yeah, parking cars.
I'm going back to Oakland for the pickup. Now, look, catcher is not a deep position. Shea Langoliers, he's going to over a whole season, he's going to kill your batting average. But right now, everything he touches turns to gold. He's only hitting 245 in 21 games, but he's hitting the ball out of the park. 4 homers, 12 RBIs, 9 runs. He's rostered in 64% of CBS leagues. And that team, I don't know where they're finding this offense from. I don't think it's going to last, but hey, enjoy the ride while you can. They took one on the chin today, but they just took 2 out of 3 out of the Astros, who I think we wrote off in mid-May.
That was a mistake.
Yeah, that was a gaffe. And the cut, speaking of guys getting DFA, James Paxton, The biggest problem with him, his numbers aren't egregious, right? They're not Frankie Montas numbers, but he has 64 strikeouts and 89 in the third innings this year. That's his problem. His career going back to 2013, he's averaged over a strikeout of inning. And when it's that low, that's alarming.
Yeah, he'll be one of those guys. I'm a James Paxton fan. He'll be one of those guys that, if not for injury, what would his career would have been like? Because Seattle James Paxton was unbelievable, right? And then he's had spurts here and there, but he's not the same. He's not the same guy.
No. He's had too many injuries.
You know what's interesting about Langoliers and you saying go get him? He was in the top 10 of most dropped this week on CBS.
That's interesting.
Yeah, isn't it? It is interesting. Maybe it's because Realmuto came back and other catchers came back from injury.
Maybe. I mean, he hit another one last night too. I mean, it's he's on fire. I wouldn't be cutting him, but
he's hitting homers more than the guy that they traded for him.
Thanks. It's the one good guy they got from that trade. They traded him and Olsen and Chappie and those other guys. They got not a lot of value there. I don't remember which sell-off they found Brent Rooker in, but yeah. So thanks for that. Come on, Oli, start hitting him out.
Start hitting him out.
He hits him in bunches when he does, but let's go.
Yeah, start with one.
Well, he had one last weekend, and then they took a few days off. Or 2 weekends before the All-Star break.
He's killing my head-to-head team, so I sympathize with you.
By the way, 6 wins in a row for Shohei's bail bonds. Yes.
Yeah, I don't have the same good fortune thanks to a 3-day friggin' week.
And I got playing Don't Bogart that the J with our buddy in Massachusetts. We're tied in the standings. I do have a lead, but projections, let's hope they merit it. It's got me over 300 points again for the week, so the juggernaut continues. You ready for the closing five? I'm looking forward to this.
I am. You'll appreciate the first one. I should put my Expos hat on for the first one.
All right. Have at it.
So, number one, to the people in Tampa and St. Petersburg, you are getting hosed beyond hosed. So, the St. Pete City Council passed the vote to basically approve the new stadium and event complex and everything else for the Rays. $6.3 billion.
How much?
$6.3 billion
with a B
project with a B. The stadium is $1.3 billion. A 30,000 seat stadium at $1.3 billion.
Wow.
The Rays are contributing, right? So the Rays are contributing. The city of St. Pete's $430 million, Pinellas County's $313 million, and then the rest is coming from bonds and a bunch of other stuff. And there's like it would do you well to read the detail of what's included in this. Like there's art, theater, entertainment, hospital. It's a total revitalization of this power plant area in St. Pete. But you're building a 30,000 seat stadium for a team that hasn't averaged over 20,000 fans since 2010. 2010, they haven't averaged over 20,000 fans. They're not going to fill that stadium. Baseball doesn't deserve to be there. I get like in today's dollars, the median the median income in Pinellas County is $103,000 a year. There's a lot to do down there. Like that Tampa St. Pete area is awesome. There's a lot to do. And baseball's not the first thing you think of when you're going to do it.
And you also got a lot of transplants down there too. They're not Rays.
They're not Rays fans. So they'll get 30,000 when the Yankees are in. They'll get 30,000 when the Red Sox are in. They'll get 30,000 when the Cubs are in. They'll get 30,000 when the Braves are in. That's what they'll get. The same 18,000 people they get for every other game. or 14,000, but because of the bumps that they get from those out of town teams, they're going to get a bump. They may get more of a destination bump because it's going to be closer to downtown and closer to the airport. But like there's a 750 room hotel as part of this project. So it's like, but baseball doesn't belong in South Florida except for in the spring.
Yeah.
And how they can justify it, and how, if you're a taxpayer, you'd be supportive of this. I wouldn't be supportive of giving an owner a nickel for a stadium. They
Are
have
you
the money.
listening?
Like, you're gonna you want to pony up $1 billion, you need 300,000. We'll make that work. You want to pony up 400,000 and you want us to pay the rest, the other 900? I'm not. No. How about no?
I hope the good folks in Vegas and Nevada are listening, because that's the
they're
ticket
not.
they're being peddled to.
They're not.
How could they be listening?
No, they're not. Vegas is enamored. Vegas is enamored with the fact of having any pro sports team they can have.
No, the Vegas legislature and the governor is. The fans, the people there don't care.
They don't care if anybody shows up. They just want to say they have it.
Yeah, they're all Dodger fans anyway.
Right. They want to add to their entertainment capital of the world moniker by adding pro sports. And I mean, are Raiders games really home games? No, they're not. They're not.
If they ever start winning, maybe, but no, they're not.
But they're not much. It's not much different than Dallas.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a destination stadium, and there's fans that go to games there just because they go, because they want to see the stadium, and season tickets are outrageously expensive, and like they're not going to get an increase in season ticket holders in Tampa because of this, because they don't have any as it is. So it's a total joke. Next up, the 3-day scoring period. Fuck the 3-day scoring period. I'm just saying it right now. It's a waste of time. It's a specific waste of time in head-to-head. It's a total waste of time. So whoever decided that's a good idea, they're dopes. But what's the point of a 3-day scoring period? It's pointless. Ride it out for 10 days, regroup, and let's go. Right? Like, you don't have a 1-day scoring period if the season ends on a Monday. Like, it's a joke. So I'm nuking the 3-day scoring periods when I'm king of the earth. 3-day scoring periods, iced coffee, gone. They're both gone. You want iced coffee? Make it in your own house. You're taking up my time. Next up, when you rush to pick up players, I would advise you to take a hard look at these guys that end up becoming flash in the pan, 1 or 2 day or 1 start wonders, and look at who they're doing it against and where they're doing it. So, for example, a pitcher gets called up. He has 9 strikeouts. It's against the Reds. Everybody has 9 strikeouts against the Reds. Everybody. James Paxton would have 9 strikeouts against the Reds. So just before you rush and burn a roster move on a guy that you're going to end up cutting in a week, just take a little bit deeper look, because we see it all the time. Guys will get off to a hot start, and then you look inside the numbers and they're like, wait a minute. The guy, okay, he had, 2 homers, 6 RBIs in a weekend series. He was hitting 188 going in. And last year in the minors, he hit 240. So I get the rush because you want to catch these guys. You want to hope you catch lightning in a bottle, but they're not all worth picking up. The oven mitt. Can we get rid of the oven mitt, please? Like, guys are wearing these things now. They're almost touching their knee. Like what's next? Like, you're going to make the bases touch each other so you can never be out on the base paths and they don't have to slide so there's no injuries. I don't know who came up with the oven mitt. I don't know who thought it was a good idea. I don't know what happened to the good old-fashioned sliding glove. They can't block the bag anymore when you steal, so I don't know how you'd hurt your finger. Learn how to slide. Really sliding practice would be a thing that you would do, like the fundamental stuff. But the oven mitt, and it looks stupid. And it's just, pretty soon they're going to be wearing Nerf, and they're going to look like knights from the medieval when they're at bat and on the bases, so they don't get dinged or hit or nicked up. And I guess I get it. There's a lot of money involved in injury. I get that. I get it all. But come on, the oven mitt. Let's let's move on. And then finally, and this one's near and dear to my heart, and this one has me more pissed off than the Tampa thing, because the Tampa thing I'm always pissed off about. In the offseason, the Cubs add Imanaga, trade for Bush, pilfer Craig Counsell from the Brewers, re-sign Cody Bellinger, go get Hector Neris, and Jed Poyer says 2 days ago, every move we make is going to be looking past 2024. And I get the Cub fans can take a lot. I get it. Preseason, we talked to them about them. Maybe they were a year early in their timeline last year because they finished super strong and made a great run. They got off to an amazing start this year. Had some injuries that hampered them a little bit. But all of a sudden, you pull the plug. Like all of a sudden, you're pulling the plug. Like the same team that set a club record for wins in April can't do that again in August. Like they're talking about trading Bellinger. They're talking about trading Neris. They're trying to find anybody to take Kyle Hendrick, which I think is they're not going to find a taker, but why would you do that to him after he's been so loyal to you? They're taking feelers on Tyon. Like they're taking feelers on everybody on literally everybody. And if I was a Cub fan, I'd still go to the games because it's Wrigley Field, but I would be pissed off. That would be very disheartening to hear him say that when you look at the standings and you're like, wait a minute, the Pirates went 7-3 and they went to 2.5 games out of the wild card in 10 days. Why can't we do the exact same thing? But it's been clear since they won the World Series, they only care about making money in Chicago. And this is absolutely no different. You are muted. I cannot hear a word you're saying.
How's that?
Much better.
I don't know how that happened. It wasn't even the mute button in the studio. No, I was going to say with the Cubs, look, they delivered a World Series a few years ago, so they got one, right?
Yeah.
Wrigley Field's always going to be a draw. They're great baseball fans, and the old style beer is always cold. So they're always going to draw. So there's not a ton of pressure on that front office to win.
Yeah, but shouldn't there be?
There should be.
But St. Louis is going to draw all the time, too.
Yeah.
And it always feels like they're under pressure to win. Like it always feels like it always feels like they're under pressure to win. It starts at the top. It starts with ownership.
Yep.
And if ownership doesn't set an expectation of winning, then I mean the front office is taking their marching orders from the guy that writes the check or the people that write the check, whoever it is. And if they're okay, I mean it's the same complaint that Yankee fans have about Hal Steinbrenner. Is that, whenever they want the ghost of George to show up and sign Ohtani and Soto and Cole and Judge and Matt Olson and, Lindor, like they want an all-star team and $1 billion payroll because the Dodgers seem to find a way to do it. Like Hal doesn't work the same way. Hal doesn't work the same way.
Well, look, let's move. I want to just add this is the and we'll get into it more next week. For people new to the Ball Nine, new to our show on Ball Nine, I am in a separation agreement with the Athletics, although I still don't think they're not going to move to Vegas ever. If they go to Sacramento, I'm out. So I started a fan free agency, got it down to the final 5. Naturally, Mike's doing everything he can to recruit me to the Yankees. Fighting Phils.
No, he's not.
Braves. The Red Sox just to piss Mike off, and the Orioles, though I kind of feel like I'm jumping on the O's bandwagon. They're so good. The Cubs, honestly, probably would have been the team I would have gone for, but one of the rules I have, if I'm going to switch teams, they got to have a good owner. And the Cubs owner, Mr. Ricketts, just shut me right out of there. I run fast and run far. Don't get involved.
Cross the Yankees off.
No, they're still on. They're
Cross them
clearly on.
Cross them off. I won't.
Now, let
allow
me
it.
look again. No, see right now, right there. There's no X through the Yankees.
I know. I tried to find a way. I tried to find a way in this unbelievable software to be able to put a big X on the screen, but I will be working on that for the next week so that I'm able to do that
Mhm.
because they're out.
No, come on. How much fun would that be?
I still say it should be the Phillies.
6-2 Mets, by the way.
You'd fit in as a Phillies fan.
Yeah, they're honestly, if there's a leader in the clubhouse, it's the Phillies. I like the
Yeah,
Phillies.
like loud, disillusioned.
Yes.
Yeah. It'd be a good fit. And before you know it, you'd be a Flyers fan. And
No.
yeah. You'd be singing "Fly Eagles Fly," and
No, that ain't gonna happen either.
there'd be all that. You'd be cursing out Rod Martin. You'd be crying like Dick Vermeil. You'd have the whole. You'd be fully assimilated.
No. Love Rod Martin.
Dude, I lived here for 32 years. I'm still not a fan of any team in this city.
12th
Not
round draft
one.
pick from USC. 3 interceptions. 3 in the Super Bowl.
I know.
All right. Well,
That's
listen,
great.
on that note, we will be back next
Yeah, we
week.
pulled off live. I don't know how we did it. Usually we spend a lot of time editing this thing, so
Yeah, we cut the editing department. We worked on more graphics, and we'll go from there.
they missed us on the our production staff missed us on the mic delay with a couple of exciting words this week. But you know what? If they're sleeping back there, fuck them. How about that?
I think I actually discovered that there's a mute button on the keyboard of my laptop that I inadvertently hit during your diatribe.
Really?
Yeah.
Technology, baby.
Now,
Maybe it was CrowdStrike. Maybe CrowdStrike infiltrated your laptop and screwed
Maybe.
everything up.
anyhow, we'll see you next week. But hit that like button, subscribe icon
Yeah.
on YouTube to hit future episodes.
Check us out on Ball 9. Check out the other podcasts on Ball 9. They're all great. Not as good
All
as
right.
ours, but they're all great.
All right.
Adios.
Adios.